I'm 30. A year ago, I survived what should have been my death. A car crash, a head-on collision. It happened in an instant. The impact, the sound of shattering glass, metal bending like paper. I only remember the screams of passers-by and the blood that covered the steering wheel. Then, nothing. No light, no sensation of flying or warmth like people often describe after clinical death. Just absolute black emptiness. I came back. The doctors said I was lucky, that I had been given a second chance. But from that moment, my life turned strange. When I moved into a new apartment, I immediately realized I wasn't alone there. I had neighbors, ones no one else could see but me. Phantom beings, transparent, but the light in the room bent around their outlines, so they were visible, like distortions in the air. They never harmed me. At first it was creepy, a cold breath near my ear, shadows moving down the hallway while I sat in silence, but over time I got used to it. They became part of my daily life. I greeted them when I came home and said goodbye when I left. There were always many of them, 10, maybe more. The scariest part was going to bed, because that's when they all came to me. I could feel the mattress sink under invisible bodies, feel them crawl, touch my legs, arms, chest, a crushing sensation, like I was gradually being covered by something cold and heavy. But I learned to breathe steadily and accept it. They weren't evil. At least that's what I thought. I talked to them. They didn't respond with words, but when I asked questions, I felt touches. Yes, a cold hand on my shoulder. No, no response at all. I'd ask one of them to tap my back and feel a light tingling. It was real. To make sure I wasn't losing my mind, I invited my brother over. He's a skeptic, never believed in the supernatural. I brought him to the bedroom. There was always someone standing near the lamp at the head of the bed. I asked if he saw her. He was silent for a long time, then finally whispered, "Yes, I see her, and not just one." From that moment, I no longer doubted. A year passed. Sometimes I even felt a kind of fondness from them. They followed me wherever I went, though they preferred my bedroom. But a few weeks ago, everything began to change. They became more intrusive. Going to sleep turned into a test of endurance. I no longer felt gentle touches. Now they were gripping me, as if trying to pull me into the bed. I started waking up gasping for breath, something cold and heavy pressing on my chest. When I threw off the blanket, nothing was there, but the pillow still held an imprint, like someone had just gotten up. At night they started whispering, not with words, but with a strange rustling that cut into my ears, made me clench my jaw. I tried not to listen, but the voices became clearer. One night I felt them crawling onto the bed again. The pressure on my chest was unbearable, and I screamed, "Stop! I haven't done anything to you!" Silence. Then a light, cold touch on my neck, and a clear whisper in my head. "You are already ours." A chill ran through me. I realized this wasn't just coexistence. They had been waiting. But for what? I started avoiding sleep, dozing off for a few hours at a time. Tried staying at a hotel, but they followed me. I realized they weren't tied to the apartment. They were tied to me. I called my brother again. He came, but this time his reaction was different. He walked around the room, stared at the empty walls, and I saw his face go pale. "There are more of them than last time," he said, his voice trembling. "They're watching you. Only you." That same night, I had a dream. I was standing in a dark room, and they were all around me. I saw their faces, distorted, eyeless, their mouths stretched into unnatural grins. They reached out their hands trying to touch me, and I felt each touch draining warmth from my body. I woke up drenched in sweat. But the worst part, the mark, a bluish handprint on my shoulder. That's when I knew they were no longer just shadows. They were becoming real, stronger. The next evening I asked them, "What do you want from me?" and felt several cold fingers press against my chest. A voice formed in my mind, a chorus of whispers. "You came back when you shouldn't have. We are the ones who stayed in the void. We held you, and now you belong to us." I sat there, barely breathing, and the truth hit me like ice. That crash a year ago, I didn't come back alone. They pulled me out of that black nothingness. They were there in the silence, and now they want payment. Every day I feel myself growing weaker. I've stopped going to work, barely eat. They're draining me, and I can't stop it. Yesterday, my brother visited again. He looked at me for a long time and finally said, "You're changing. They starting to look like you." I walked up to the mirror. My heart froze. The face in the reflection was mine, but slightly transparent. The edges flickered, bending the light. I touched my cheeks, cold, just like their hands. Today I'm writing this. I don't know how much time I have left. They're here now, in the room, watching me. Some are sitting on the floor, some standing by the walls. One has already lain down beside me. I can feel its cold hand in mine. I thought they came because I survived, but now I know I didn't. That night on the road, I died. And all of this life, is just my imagination, my brain refusing to accept death. I've been living for a year in an apartment that doesn't exist, with people who aren't real. And now that I understand that, they're smiling, because once I finish writing this, I'll join them completely. They're calling me back into the void.